Hello, everybody. This is Marty from Dogs Blog in the noontime report in the morning session of the Frank Carson et al. Trial. I give you a nutshell. Basically, you heard most of it yesterday. They brought Robert Woody in, and first of all, court was scheduled to start at 9 o'clock. And the judge called in that she was stuck in traffic, as she typically is when the jury's not scheduled to come in right away. And she got there around 9:35. Court was in session at 9:36. What they did is they brought Woody in. They had him listen to the recordings and of these interviews that he did not recall all these things. And we went through all those yesterday, so you probably heard them. So basically it's John Evers and Kurt Bunch interview him on March 1st, 2014, when he was first taken into custody. He had been on a three-day binge of alcohol and drugs, and so they listened to those recordings, and it didn't seem that Robert Woody was real receptive to a lot of things. He was tired and burned out and drunk and high. Also, they were talking about the March 14th of 2014 transport, when Steve Jacobson was transporting him to court, or back and forth from the jail from Tuolumne County. So they talked about a lot of that stuff too. I'm not going to give you the details on that because most of those were asked yesterday, and we're going to be asked again when once the jury comes up and he gets on his stand in front of the jury. So Kurt Bunch was telling him, what I'm telling you is what Robert Woody was saying. I'm having trouble with my recording device here, so it may be messing up on me a little bit. Kurt Bunch was saying that he knows that the Outlaws were involved, that they had, that he's not really involved in it. It was the Outlaws that were involved. He knew that Kurt Bunch was saying that he knew that Daljeet Atwell hadn't hired anybody; they had done it themselves. They talked about that they knew Woody made a confession on the Miranda Dykes body wire. He said, well, I was just goofing around and trying to impress a girl. John Evers was repeating some of the same things. He said he made some false statements to Miranda Dykes in that body wire again because he was trying to impress a girl. When they were doing the interview on 3/1/14, before the bathroom break, Kurt Bunch made a point of saying, we're going to go to the bathroom, we're taking a break. Nobody's going to be talking about anything off camera or off mic. And then they went into the bathroom, took a break, and they started talking about making statements, asking questions off camera and off the mic. Apparently this was also an investigator and Robert Woody's attorney. I believe Martin Baker was in on this one. He told Steve Jacobson in one of the transports that he doesn't know what he doesn't know. How could he tell him anything that he doesn't know? Again, they went to the bathroom break. They said they have a confession, and he had said something to Jacobson about the fact, again, I don't know what I don't know. Something was said during the bathroom break, and he came back and they said that Kurt Bunch said that he said that he was on the Carson property, and Robert Woody then said, well, it wasn't actually on the property. Robert Woody was sure it was somewhere, but he wasn't sure where it was. He sounded pretty confused about things. Kurt Bunch was asked on the street or where it was, and Robert Woody said, yeah, I think maybe it was on the street. Kurt Bunch showed him a Google image of a Frank Carson property, and Robert Woody said something to the effect, I guess that's where, he asked him where they went in. He said, I guess right there is where the gate would be at the front of the property. He apparently was pointing at it. It was on audio, so I don't really know. And he said Kurt Bunch said Dee had probably been there previously too. John Evers asked him about the injuries to Corey Kaufman and if they had guns, if Corey Kaufman had been injured. He said, yeah. That's kind of how he answers the questions, yeah. Again, talking about after the break, he said if he had knowledge, he said he didn't recall. He remembers saying something that Bobby and Dee were there, but then later said it was a false statement. That was during a transport about 2 weeks later with Steve Jacobson. He was coming from Tuolumne County Jail. And Steve Jacobson was telling him that he was never going to be able to see his kids again except on visiting days at the prison. And Steve Jacobson was telling him that Robert Woody said he didn't do anything. And he didn't know anything about the Carson property and didn't know if Carson or anybody else had anything to do with it. He also said, Robert Woody also said that he did not know who the killer was, the killer or killers were. He said if he would known, he would have said it very up in front and freely, because that's what he believes would get him out of trouble. He said the truth will save him. But every time he tells the truth, they call him a liar. Steve Jacobson also went into a long narrative, getting quite emotional at one point, talking about Robert Woody's not going to be able to see his parents again, be able to help them like he's always helped them in the past, especially with mom's health issues, not be able to help his family and so on. Steve Jacobson actually got pretty emotional during that conversation too, trying to get Robert Woody worked up. And then later on, around, I believe it was August of 2014 or somewhere around that point, he did an interview, which was the polygraph, a pre-polygraph interview with Agent Jefferson, and they were talking about he admitted that he had made false statements to the investigators that he was there. He said it wasn't true, that I never did it. Robert Woody couldn't recall the name of that investigator, but his name was Jefferson. But Robert Woody says he was not there, and he kept saying it over and over again, I wasn't there. Said they want to make a case against him, and that's all they can seem to be concerned about. He also admitted to Jefferson that he had lied to investigators, saying that he was involved in it, and he never was. He told Jefferson that he had never seen Corey Kaufman, either alive or dead. He was only aware of him from the flyer on the window at Pop and Cork. Steve Jacobson, on 3/14/14, he told Steve Jacobson he didn't know anything, and told Jefferson that he lied. This is one of the other transports that he told Jacobson that he lied to the investigators before, and he told Jefferson the truth when he said he was present at 9th Street. On August 14th of 2015, he talked with Steve Jacobson and saw some people being brought into custody, and that was the date that all the Carson people were taken into custody. And he told his attorneys he didn't need anything. They had him positioned at the sheriff's department where he could see them being brought in, and this was an attempt, I believe, to show him that he didn't need to fear. But the law enforcement officers did have him at the sheriff's department seeing everybody being booked at the jail. Hans was asking about where he was situated and stuff, and Marlissa Ferreira, who was continually objecting to everything, just about every question, says it misstates the evidence, and Han retorted, "Does not." This is what he said. So it was getting a little hectic, and the jury was sent out of the room. So 11:35 they were out. Again, we had 31 minutes of jury time this morning. A little ridiculous. Part of what they were arguing about is the statements that Robert Woody had waived his attorney privilege on. He didn't waive privilege to everything. He only waived privilege to certain things. Remember, just to give you a little history, Robert Woody made a statement as attorney in August, I believe it was 2016, that he had lied about Walter Wells and Frank Carson being there. He had lied about that. This is after the issue with Beverly Woody was on the stand, and some of the things that she had said that really made a mess of things, that she was trying to help her son Robert, and she didn't care what she said. Beverly Woody was on the stand. In July of 2016, Robert Woody did another interview with investigators and did say in that interview that Frank Carson and Walter Wells were there. Well, he had formed 3 months prior. He said that they weren't in a confidential communique with his attorney. So this was with Martin Baker. Bruce Perry, who had returned from vacation, found out what happened and had to clarify it with everybody. And it was a real big mess in the prelim and stuff. And Robert Woody did recant in regards to Frank Carson and Walter Wells being there, so they were nowhere near the property when this incident happened, but he's still implicating the Outlaws. This is what Marlissa was objecting to. The attorney for Robert Woody, Bruce Perry, isn't here. He had somebody from his office sitting in, and I forget the gentleman's name. And he objected also because of the privilege areas that they may be going into, and he was going to talk to defense attorneys. And Marlissa Ferreira says, "No, you're not without me." Judge Zuniga is saying this is really turning into a mess, as you can tell. She does not have the discovery from Robert Woody's attorneys and what is exactly they're talking about, so she's not sure if privilege is attached or not. But she was familiar with the waiver that was made by Bruce Perry, and Marlissa Ferreira said the same thing, and I agree with both of them actually, that this was Bruce Perry did indicate that Woody is not giving up privilege to all communications, only that one communication to clarify what the statement he made in April, where he's saying they weren't there, and then against the statement he made to investigators saying they were there. It's a real mess, a little bit of a battle going on in court, and like I said, the jury was out of the room. So the judge, who again had lost control of the court for a minute or two there, and she let Attorney Hans make a record saying that Marlissa Ferreira is objecting is based on there is a recording of that interview while Beverly Woody is testifying. It's a statement by Robert Woody that is available, and it has been available. In fact, I have a copy of it myself. He says there are numerous reports by Perry and Martin Baker, reports that say nothing about Robert Woody has changed his statements, and there's no prejudicial knowledge of towards the Outlaws in any of those statements. There are also later statements where he tells officers he told them he lied in prior interviews that they are not willing to accept. Robert Woody has waived privilege in court. I was there when he did, and information received from the interviews, again, is just on that one interview that was done with his private investigator and Martin Baker, where Robert Woody never said that he was there. He just talked in general terms about it, and he said Frank Carson and Walter Wells were not there. During the interview with Dombey and Steve Jacobson, he still denied any knowledge of the homicide. And I don't remember the exact date of that, but I believe it was after everybody was taken into custody. The attorney sitting in court for Robert Woody said Robert Woody did assert privilege, but waived only certain issues, but not all of them, all of the conversations and such. So he was only waiving privilege on that one bit of that one interview where he could get the information out. He was trying to protect his mother at the time. That was what Marlissa Ferreira was arguing. The waiver was related to basically Beverly Woody, not Robert Woody, but he was trying to cover her backside on that. But Perry was only waiving that one interview in regards, and that was it to help Beverly Woody because she'd got on the stand and lied like crazy. Judge Iniga asked Marlissa Ferreira if she had all those reports and those interviews and such from the attorneys, and she said yes, she does, but she doesn't have them there with her. And she said, Marlissa Ferreira said, well, Hans needs to provide this. He's the one that started all this. So we're playing that game. Hans said he had several documents, but he gave all the bait stamps of all the ones that were judges referring to, and they were going to be provided to the court. So we're going back at 1:15. The jury will be back in court whenever, but the attorneys have to be back in at 1:15. We did leave a few minutes early. So that's where we left it for the morning. It's kind of confusing. It's hard to follow some of this stuff. Basically, Robert Woody denied a lot of things, and then he just kind of admitted to the investigators, and then denied it again later, and was telling other people he lied because sometimes suspects get interviewed for hours. This was like a 7-hour interview, and they just wear down. They just start telling them what they want to hear, and it has many times it has nothing to do with the truth. So I don't know if that's the case here or not, but that's what happens quite often. Back at 1:15 this afternoon, and don't forget the podcast tonight.